My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is Dewbs & Co, the show where we'll get into some of the things that have got you talking today. Now, I say talking today, I'm deaf in one of my ears, I think now. If you just heard Colin Brazier's end of his show, you'll know why. All hail the town criers, eh? Right, coming up tonight here, though, Truss, Sunak, they are in Scotland, of course, talking tough. But will either of them make a real difference to the future of Scotland, to the future of the Union? What's your thoughts on that? And while I'm talking Scotland, you tell me, the SNP, have they been a good thing for Scotland or not? And let's talk working, shall we? Wages are falling the fastest rate when it comes to real-time pay on record. You've got childcare closing. That's if, by the way, you can even afford to be in it in the first place for your kids. On the other side of the fence, you've got increased help, rightly so, by the way, to those people that are struggling. You've got things like new social tariffs for broadband, mobile phones, etc. And it's got me pondering tonight, are we in danger of losing our incentive to get people to work? I mean, are you sitting there sometimes, are you at the lower end of the income scale? Are you thinking to yourself, why am I bothering? You tell me your thoughts on that tonight. And there's conversations today about whether or not the Royal Navy will continue patrolling the Channel from January the next year. Some say that they won't. Liz Truss, though, saying absolutely yes, they will. What do you make to this? Would it be the right decision for them not to do that? We'll have all of that to come, but first, let's bring ourselves up to date with tonight's latest news headlines.
Thanks, Michelle. 2 minutes past 6. Here's the latest from the GB newsroom. The High Court has heard how one Foreign Office advisor warned ministers that torture and even killings are accepted by the Rwandan government. The opinion came weeks before the British government tried to send asylum seekers to the African nation. The Foreign Office is now asking the court to keep extracts from 2 documents secret, saying their disclosure would harm national security. The hearing comes ahead of a legal challenge to the Rwanda policy, which will be heard in September. New figures show wages have fallen at their fastest rate since records began more than 2 decades ago. The Office for National Statistics say growth in regular pay, excluding bonuses, was 4.7% between April and June. However, taking into account rising prices, such as food, energy and fuel, the real value of wages has fallen by 3%. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is defending the Tory party's plans to help the economy.
We're still in the leadership contest at the moment. Now, my priority is reducing taxes so people can keep more of their own money, at the same time as making sure we boost energy supply. It's wrong to just keep sticking plasters on this problem. What we actually need to do is make sure we are unleashing more energy, for example, from the North Sea. We're investing in technologies like nuclear, and we're finding more renewable energy as well. We need to solve this problem for the long term.
Well, meanwhile, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer says the wage stats are further evidence of mounting pressure on millions of people.
Look, this is further pressure on so many families, so many working people. And this wage stagnation has been going on for 10 years. So I really understand just how people are struggling. It's one of the reasons that we announced our energy price freeze yesterday, to keep those bills down and to make the choice that the oil and gas companies in the North Sea should pay a windfall tax to help people who are struggling through this winter period. So it's further evidence, I think, of the pressure that so many millions of people are under.
Former Manchester United player Ryan Giggs is currently on trial for allegedly assaulting his former girlfriend and her sister, charges he denies. Our reporter Sophie Reaper has been following the trial in Manchester.
Former Manchester United player Ryan Giggs was called to the stand for the first time here at Manchester Crown Court in order to be questioned by the defence. Mr Giggs was asked about his reputation for infidelity, and he admitted that he has never been faithful in a relationship, but he also told the court that he has never assaulted a woman. He denied making Kate Greville a slave to his every demand, which is something that Ms Greville claimed whilst on the stand last week. Mr Giggs also answered questions about the start of the relationship with Ms Greville and how it developed over time. He told the court of various incidents in their relationship, including what he described as a difficult patch back in early 2019. Now, court will resume for day 8 of the trial tomorrow morning at around 10 a.m. It's also worth saying that Mr Giggs denies all 3 of the charges he's accused of.
The court has heard how 2 men who died after becoming stuck in a burning hotel had tried to smash open a window to escape. A fatal accident inquiry into the 2017 fire at Cameron House Hotel on the banks of Loch Lomond near Glasgow is currently underway. The men have been named as Simon Midgley and his partner Richard Dyson, both from London. A fire investigator told the inquiry that a picture frame had been prized from the wall with the likely intention to try to smash the window. The Conservative leadership candidates have vowed to better scrutinise the Scottish Government if they become the next Prime Minister. Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak will face off at another hustings in Perth this evening. Both have stated their opposition to a referendum on Scottish independence. Ms Truss has committed to get Scotland's economy moving. Tory MP Andrew Bowie believes Sunak is the ideal candidate to ensure Scotland remains in the UK.
And it's my view that Rishi Sunak is best placed to ensure Scotland's place at the heart of our United Kingdom for years to come. That's why I'm backing him. We need to ensure that the UK government is as representative and as, stands up for Scottish people as it does for people across the rest of the United Kingdom. That's one way that we're going to ensure Scotland remains at the heart of the UK. But the other is by taking the SNP on at the ballot box and beating them.
Former Pop Idol contestant Darius Campbell Dinesh has been found dead at the age of 41. His family announced that the singer and actor was found in his US apartment in Minnesota. After appearing on Pop Idol, he forged a successful stage career, including West End roles in Chicago and Guys and Dolls. The cause of his death is not yet known. We're on TV, online and on DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Back now to Dewbs & Co.
Thanks for that. Gosh, what sad news there about Darius. I must have missed that when I was preparing for my show. I remember Darius, so I do. What a sad, tragic story. Anyway, Phil has been in touch saying, Michelle, that was a lovely image of you at the start of the programme with the town cry behind you. Phil says, the smile on your face lit up the room. That's very nice, Phil. I've got to say, though, the smile on my face was hiding a rage, a fury. I love the town crier, but did you notice he got the name of my show wrong? He called it Dewberry and Kerr. As Lord Sugar would say, you are fired. But he did make me smile, Do you have a town crier where you live? Are you into it? Is it your thing? My ears are still ringing, I can tell you. Well, keeping me company until 7 o'clock tonight. They didn't have to have that loud shouting and bell ringing. They were in the other room, wasn't you, Ben Habib? Former Brexit Party MEP and the CEO of First Property Group. And the anthropologist, Mary Ann Erhotter. Yeah, you swerved that one. You didn't have that right in your ear, as I did. I can still hear that bell ringing.
And we both noticed that we know the name of your show.
Good.
So hopefully we're not fined, we get to stay.
Good, yes, you can stay. And if you missed the end of Colin's show and you don't know what I'm talking about, that'll teach you a lesson. Tune in. Never switch GB News off, and then you won't be sitting there thinking, what's she talking about? Because you'd know the answer. Anyway, you know the drill on Dewbs and Co by now, don't you? It's not just about us three here, it's about you at home as well. Get in touch with me tonight. Let me know what is on your mind. If you have just tuned in, you're wondering what we've got coming up for you. I want to talk to you about Scotland. The SNP, good thing for Scotland, bad thing for Scotland. Are you in Scotland? I want your thoughts on that. Also, we'll be talking to you about the channel. Touched on this briefly yesterday because the figures had passed over 20,000. People have crossed. Now, potentially conversations about Royal Navy. Should they lead the way when it comes to patrolling the channel? I've got to say, they've not done a great job of it so far, have they? But anyway, we'll be bringing that up towards the end of the programme. And when it comes to working, are you incentivised to keep going or not? We'll look at that and more in just a few minutes. But should we get into our top story? Did I tell you, by the way, how to get in touch with me, or was I waffling on? If you're sitting there thinking, I want to talk to you, Michelle, but you didn't tell me, I'll remind you just in case I didn't. gbviews@gbnews.uk is the email. You can tweet me at Michelle Dewbs or at GBNews. So, top story today then. The Tory leadership hustings has moved to Scotland. In Perth they are this evening. Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak have promised greater scrutiny of the Scottish Government once they move into number 10. So it's got me pondering tonight. Do you think either of them would make a difference in Scotland? And the SNP generally, have they been a success or a failure in Scotland? Mariana Hotter, I'll start with you. Your thoughts?
Well, I think most pertinent at the moment is to say, what's the situation with the Scottish Conservatives? And the answer is parlous. I mean, in the May local elections, the SNP gained 22 seats, so they're up to 453 councillors. Conservatives lost 63 councillors. Lib Dems, Scottish Greens, and Labour, they all gained where the Conservatives lost. So the kind of question is, obviously, Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss is going to become the Prime Minister, but at this point, they're lobbying for support from Scottish Conservatives, particularly members of the Scottish Conservative Party. So it's kind of an interesting combination. I think it's very telling, though, that they've both come out with quite strong statements today talking about how important it is to preserve the union, that they are is clearly looking forwards in their calendar of what fires they're going to have to fight a little bit further down the road. They're thinking the state of the union is pretty shambolic. The SNP are just waiting to leverage that enormous grassroots support they've got throughout Scotland at all different socioeconomic levels, all different classes. At a certain point, you know, the question, has the SNP failed Scotland? Well, their stated aim is to be a national party that campaigns for independence, and they're not failing on that front by any stretch of the imagination.
Right, Ben, just before I come to you, I'll share some of the thoughts of my viewers. You're not sitting on the fence tonight, got to be honest. Joe says, Michelle, the SNP is the worst party in British history. Phil says, the SNP are the Scottish equivalent of the Northern Ireland Sinn Féin. They're there to disrupt rather than govern. John says, Westminster needs to dissolve Holyrood and carry out an audit on all the money wasted by the SNP.
Can I ask the viewers who are writing in or listeners who are writing in to say whether they're in Scotland or not? Because
yes, there you go.
There's a risk, isn't there, that people who live in Somerset have a lot to say about this, but the people in Scotland are maybe sitting there grumbling into their cup of tea.
Well, I will read you someone that does live in Scotland. In fact, there's a couple, actually, that I can't necessarily read out that do live in Scotland, I have to say. There's a strength of feeling from a few of you who are in Scotland tonight that, I'll put it mildly, that you're not keen on the SNP. Steve, you say, I live in Scotland, and I think it's about time somebody looked into the SNP. You make some allegations there that I won't necessarily read out, but you're suggesting that they do not have the support in your mind that you think that they do. Another John says, we in Scotland here have to live with these SNP reptiles. He's put it in capitals as well. There's a lot of strong feelings, but to Marianne's point, if you're in Scotland, tell me that and let me know your thoughts.
I mean, people voting at the ballot box in May, that wasn't that long ago. are the representative sample. That was an invitation to everyone over 18 to vote, and they voted for the SNP.
Who's this?
A lot of them.
Isabel, Michelle, the SNP is a massive failure to us Scots. They've let us down on education, the NHS and crime. They are an absolute sham, she says. Yes, I am Scottish and yes, I live in Scotland. Ben Habib.
Well, I mean, I hold the SNP in very low regard. They've used devolution as I suppose you might expect them to, which is a soapbox for grievance politics. They can get up on that soapbox, they can complain about Westminster, they can pass policies for which they will not be held to account. And if everything goes pear-shaped, they'll come begging bowl in hand, which Nicola Sturgeon did recently, to Westminster asking for more money. I mean, the real problem here isn't SNP. The real problem here is devolution, which was a half-baked Tony Blair creation, which really we should roll back completely. And I agree entirely with one of your viewers who said that the Holyrood should be abolished. I'd abolish the Welsh Assembly and I'd abolish Stormont. We are one United Kingdom, and there is one Parliament that should govern the United Kingdom. And actually, I don't care whether the views come from British nationals based in Scotland or British nationals based in Cornwall. You know, this is a constitutional debate that we're having, which involves all of the United Kingdom, and we're all British citizens. So, I mean, I think devolution's been a disaster. I think it allows grievance politics. It's bound to promote separatists. But there is one interesting point I'd just like to make before I stop, and that is that the Conservative Party actually has an unhealthy relationship with the SNP. Because for as long as the SNP can hold its ground in Scotland, it's very, very hard for the Labour Party to get an outright majority. So even though the SNP might tilt against the Union and therefore offend the Conservative and Unionist Party, it's actually rather helpful for the Tories that the SNP exists. I said that was my final point. There's one other point I'd like to make, which is that on the union of the United Kingdom, actually the real threat right now is not from Scotland. The real threat is from Northern Ireland, which, as we know, has been substantially left behind in the European Union. Stormont isn't functioning. We have an elected party in Stormont that is openly hostile to the United Kingdom, won't take its seats up in Westminster. At least the SNP does take its seats up in Westminster and engage at a genuine United Kingdom level. And we've got a First Minister in waiting in Northern Ireland who actually, as recently as a couple of weeks ago, was bullying up IRA terrorists. You know, that is the state of devolution, and something fundamentally has to change in the way we structured the country. And I go back to where this started, Tony Blair responsible.
See, that is quite radical there. What do you think to that at home? Do you agree with Ben? Do you think essentially scrap all the parliamentary devolution and just have Westminster? I mean, I've got to be honest, though, some people at home will be yelling at the screen in that Westminster has not really done a great job of things as it currently stands. The country is in a bit of a mess. Marianne, you want to come in? I can hear the intake of breath.
I think if it is a radical suggestion, I'm kind of intrigued to kind of play the thought experiment through. Yeah. I think if we're going to, demolish Holyrood and Stormont and the Senate, why not demolish the House of Commons as well and just go for a whole new, kind of Terra Nova place? I don't know, pick Birmingham. Let's have it all Coventry or Derby or somewhere. Hull, there you go, Hull. But somewhere we'd never expect to have the centre of power.
I'm less wed to the geographic location of Parliament.
Let's start afresh.
But, for me, there's only one United Kingdom. We are one country. We've got to stop thinking of ourselves as four countries. We are one United Kingdom. My love of Northern Ireland is as big as my love for Scotland, Wales and England. And we've got to stop looking at the United Kingdom through this narrow prism. I don't care whether Parliament's in Hull, London, Edinburgh. Move it to Edinburgh for all I care. But
I don't want the United Kingdom to break up either. But I think to say that you don't care is too close to attempting to just ignore history. You don't care about the differences.
No, I said I love each part of the United Kingdom equally. I don't care where Parliament is based.
That's what I mean. I think you have to care because I think it speaks to centuries of trauma, of dismissal, of unfairness that people are living through now as well. I mean, that's, excuse me, that said, if you go to some communities in the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, they will feel as unrepresented by the people in, you know, the kind of intellectual elites of Holyrood in Edinburgh as they do by the ministers of Parliament in Westminster sitting in a bar in Knightsbridge. So I think it's funny, isn't it? Because the British Isles, we're quite small, but we are very, very geographically diverse. We have deeply held cultural values and some aspects where local community or regional identity is hugely important to people, and we have to acknowledge that in our politics. We have to acknowledge that in the way that we are governed and we govern ourselves.
But that is automatically acknowledged by representation in Westminster, which is done on a constituency basis based on around 70,000 constituents per constituency. I mean, that roughly is how it's done. So, I mean, all you create when you give Scotland its own assembly and Wales and Northern Ireland in particular, where you've got this rabid hostile force, you know, inhabiting a significant part of the assembly. All you give them is a soapbox to shout at Westminster.
It's naive, though, to think that Westminster runs in such a way that everybody has equal say, because you know, politicians and the cabinet,
the majority get the majority say. That's how democracy works.
But that's not really how it works either, because there's a set of priorities that are, you know, I mean, we're kind of talking about Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss coming to Scotland and announcing what their priorities are going to be. They might not be the priorities of the people they're addressing. They're certainly not the priorities of the people who aren't going to be voting in the Conservative Party. But they will be the majority. Not necessarily.
Presumably.
I mean, Ben, you've been around long enough to know that it's not always the majority.
No, but then they get
sometimes vested interest.
They get
it's sometimes what plays
I mean, if we're going on to the vested interest of the Tory party, we could be here for hours.
You know, to the crowd.
Yeah.
It's not actually what's important, always.
I've got to say, there is quite a lot of love for your criticism of devolution. That's coming through at the moment. Quite a lot of people are agreeing with what you're saying in terms of, who's this guy? You email so quickly, you guys. I spot one and then it flies down the list. Alan says, Ben is absolutely spot on. Abolish Holyrood. This is another Tony Blair disaster, he says. Can I put a request out? If there's anyone that loves the SNP, can you get in touch with me, please, and tell me? Because so far, I don't think I've missed anything, but there's not a lot of love coming through for the SNP. Wiley, you've just emailed in. You're the last email that's just come in saying the SNP are a bunch of clowns that have ruined everything that was once good in Scotland. Education, NHS, you name it, they ruined it. So many people...
I think a lot of their more socialist policies are very progressive, and I think to some extent, across the United Kingdom, it's incredibly valuable to see people trialling and actually putting into the real-world messy realities policies that people elsewhere in the United Kingdom go, oh, if only we could do that. Things about sort of a more progressive way of rehabilitating people who are locked into a cycle in the criminal justice system, ways of addressing attainment gaps in education between people who are children who are experiencing lives growing up in deprivation compared to kids who have every privilege.
But are you saying devolution assists the promotion of better policies?
I'm saying it enables more flexibility and agility in some aspects, because you can go, OK, we're going to enact this in Scotland, we're going to go for it, in the way that a sort of more federal government structure enables local communities to respond to local needs. That was the basis of devolution, wasn't it? Rather than this kind of very top-down, sort of process-heavy edict from literally on far, because it's coming from Westminster.
It's not an edict, it's a democratically elected parliament.
No, because policies are enacted. Policies are enacted. Ben, the one thing I absolutely agree with you is that Northern Ireland, Michelle, should be so much further up the news agenda and so much further into public conversation, because it is utterly dysfunctional. People of Northern Ireland don't have a functioning democratic parliament at the moment, and yet we mostly ignore it, which is terrible.
Are you in
criminal.
Northern Ireland at the moment? Do you feel ignored? As Mary-Anne got a point with that one, tell me, get in touch, GBViews at gbnews.uk. I'm also on the hunt for an SNP lover. If you are out there, if you exist, can you get in touch with me? Because I'm getting a lot of people to put it mildly, they're not fans of the SNP. If you are a fan, you're watching, get in touch, gbviews at gbnews.uk. I'm fascinated to hear why. So also, Northern Ireland, Marianne, suggesting that you feel ignored at the moment. Is she right? Get in touch. Tell me what you think about all of that. It's going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll have more of your reaction. But I also want to talk about work. Are we de-incentivising people at the moment to either get into work or to stay in work? Wages falling, real-time wages I'm talking about, falling for the fastest rate in about 2 decades. You've got lots of kind of help on the way for people that are in benefits. You know, where are you at the moment? Are you motivated to go out and work or not? You tell me and I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of 2 wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Coming up on the Mark Stein Show, a spanner in the work for wage growth. Real-term pay in the UK has fallen at the fastest pace on record. Jasmine Birtles will be on hand to unpick that one. Dr. Asima Holter is back to demand the full release of Pfizer's raw trial data and an end to all remaining vaccine mandates in an exclusive after the release of his open letter to Boris Johnson and Joe Biden today. Plus, another block in the road for free speech as Facebook is accused of buddying up with Pfizer to train journalists in fact-checking posts critical of the vaccine. We hear from Natalie Winters, who has written about the controversy. All that and more on the Mark Stein Show tonight from 8 o'clock.
Deserves its own view.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs and Kerr. I'm still trying to shut these 2 up. They're still arguing about whether or not we should have devolution or not. Who are the 2 that I'm talking about, in case you've tuned in and wondered what on earth's going on? We've got the former Brexit Party MEP and CEO of First Property Group, Ben Habib, and the anthropologist, Marianne O'Hotter. I've got to say, I don't think you guys are going to agree on this one.
No, I'm firmly of the belief that Scotland is a country.
Oh, well, there you go. Lots of support,
crazy.
by the
Call
way.
me crazy.
I have to say, you're saying about Scotland being a country, lots of people have written in today saying, I'm not in Scotland, I'm in England, but I would quite like a vote as to whether or not Scotland should be independent so that I can vote yes, there should be.
Oh.
Harsh.
And that's part of the problem. You know, you start irritating people across the spectrum who start seeing Scotland as synonymous with Nicola Sturgeon, and they're not. Nicola Sturgeon is a chippy, vindictive individual who wants to use her soapbox for division and the breakup of the United Kingdom. And that's bound to engender that sort of reaction in England.
But
Particularly when under the Barnett formula, you talk about fairness, actually under the Barnett formula, Scotland gets much more state support than England does.
Well, what can I say? I don't think these guys are going to agree, so we'll have to agree to disagree. You can tell me your thoughts. But for now, I'm going to move on. I want to talk to you about the world of work, because today, figures out show that the real value of UK wages have fallen by 3%. That's apparently the steepest decline on record. Now, this has kind of got me pondering, so it has, because, you know, we're in an awful, tricky situation at the moment. Times are about to get a lot harder for a lot more people. Also, we're seeing things like childcare providers, lots of nurseries have been closing down recently. And it's got me kind of thinking, so it has, Ben Habib. If someone's on a kind of lower to mid salary, I wonder if there's people now pondering, is it worth me going to work? We're seeing lots of incentives now for people that are, you know, very much on the lower end and on benefits. The social tariff I was looking at earlier on for broadband, mobile phones, etc. Are we de-incentivising people to go out and work?
Completely de-incentivising them. If you look at the average wage in the United Kingdom, which is about £26,000 a year, about 500 odd pounds a week, it's only marginally ahead of what you can get on universal credit, which is in the high 200s. And of course, you pay tax on your 500 and whatever you get per week. And there are lots of people who aren't earning the average. They are earning, by definition, below the average, because the average is struck when you take the entire working populace into account. And we're seeing this in the figures. So even though the Prime Minister, and rightly was pulled up by Keir Starmer on this, has repeatedly said in the Commons that we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in a decade coming out of the pandemic. That may be the case, but that's only because the unemployment figures measure only those people who are looking for a job. We actually have a record 5.6 million people. Just ponder and think about that at the moment. 5.6 million people claiming universal credit. That is over 20% of the UK, that is about 20% of the UK workforce claiming benefits. That is terrible.
But a lot of those people will work and having their income topped up by benefits. There'll be a lot of people will say about in-work poverty and stuff like that. So, you know, not everyone on universal credit, for example,
but what
work.
Sort of system enables 5.6 million people or encourages 5.6 million people to effectively rely on the state for their livelihood?
A system that has rewarded people to pay their workers wages that are not livable.
There is something, I completely agree with you, there's something that's gone fundamentally wrong in the way that our economy is working. And we talked about a 3% reduction in real wages this year. Actually, over the last 12 years of Conservative government, which champions, obviously, a capitalist system, under the Conservative government, wages have gone up 5% in nominal terms since 2010, and inflation has been 35%. Real wages have actually shrunk by 25% under this Conservative capitalist system. And it's because we don't have a truly Conservative government. It's because we don't have a capitalism that now works. What we have is a larger and ever more invasive nanny state. I call it a wet nurse now. I think nanny state we've left in the rearview mirror ages ago. And people are discouraged from working. Why would you go to work if you can receive very close to what you get in work by staying at home?
Marianne?
I just think that so misrepresents this mythical 5.6 million people who are sitting at home watching daytime TV.
I didn't say that all 5.6...
It's just
nonsense. I didn't say that. No. Marianne, don't put words in my mouth. What I said was 5.6 million people are claiming benefits. That is a record number. And when you look at the taxed average wage, it's very close to the average amount being claimed on universal credit.
So to make sense of that figure, 5.6 million people, we need to unpack who those 5.6 million people are. Michelle points out very rightly that lots of those people will be receiving top-up benefits because the work that they're doing isn't affording them the basic minimum standards of being able to feed and clothe themselves and pay for the lights to stay on. That is unacceptable.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more.
The unemployment figures are sometimes a bit of a fail to indicate all the people who are officially in work but are perhaps in very precarious situations. They're being paid less than a livable wage, or they're on 0 hours contracts where they're officially in work, but they don't really know how much they're going to earn from pay packet to pay packet. And there's loads and loads of people, Ben, you're absolutely right, that in real terms, people are massively suffering. Yes, there's a real terms wage increase, but it can't keep up. It so far hasn't, and in the next 6 to 12 months will not be able to keep up with the rise of inflation, which is the cost of living.
And that is the fundamental failing of 12 years of Conservative government. An inability...
I will absolutely agree with you on that front.
An inability to grow the economy. It's all been about an increasing, ever larger state. It's been about high taxation. Sunak is completely wrong. He's completely and utterly wrong when he says that it would be the wrong time to cut taxes. What's the best way to help working and middle-class people afford the cost of living? It's to cut national insurance, not increase it on them. Cut VAT so that the goods that they're buying aren't that expensive. Cut tax on fuel so they can actually afford to fill up their cars. And lots of people, yes, do have to drive. Cut tax on domestic fuel, which actually the Conservative government promised they would abolish once we left the EU. Ditch the green taxes, which add another 8% to your domestic fuel.
No,
there is so much.
That's not
there
true.
is so much that could be done to make the United Kingdom a more cost-effective place to live. We are an incredibly highly regulated, expensive economy, and that has to change.
It's funny because I agree with your conclusion, which is 12 years of Conservative government have not done anyone any favours, but I disagree with the rest of what you've said, because I think that a highly regulated environment means that we have good quality food, for example. It means that we have environmental protections where you're not going to suddenly live next door to a chemical toxic dump that gives your kids cancer, which you see in other countries.
It's not a binary choice, Marianne, between having high standards and living in the toxic wasteland.
Well, there's a certain point at which if you strip out all the regulation and you
I didn't say strip out all the regulation.
And you have lots of deregulation, you end up with a situation where water companies, for example, I mean, they're constantly in the news at the moment, perhaps a little unfairly, are going, well, you know, they're regulated in ways that determine how many leaks they're allowed to have, how many raw sewage discharges they're allowed to have before they get regulated, before they get penalised. You strip that away, then the only people they're answering to are their shareholders.
Marianne,
that doesn't serve us well, does it?
There is a massive difference between needing to deregulate and lower taxes on individuals' cost of living and ditching regulation altogether. Obviously, ditching regulation altogether is absurd, but every regulation a government makes has a monetary impact on the economy. Mm-hmm. So when you live in a highly regulated economy, which is where we are, you have put a massive burden both on businesses and on individuals. That's what the effect of... So green taxes, you may believe that the climate crisis is one that requires green taxes, but those green taxes burden the individual. They just do. It's a matter of fact. 8% on the average domestic fuel bill at the moment. VAT on fuel, it burdens the individual. If you cut these costs, people will be able to afford to live more easily. So it is a matter of having to deregulate and cut costs. The alternative is to put up wages to try and meet the inflation that we're facing and entrench inflation into the system. Public sector wages will go through the roof, government debt will go through the roof, and you end up precisely where you started, in a deeper economic problem. What we have to do is deregulate and cut taxes.
I think that puts too much of reliance and a sense of responsibility on private investors and companies, and
individuals.
And individuals.
But do you not trust those private companies to do the right thing?
But what is the right thing? The right thing is to raise profit for shareholders, not to help the person who can't afford their groceries in Asda.
Well, you speak about this.
Or get a doctor, or find decent childcare and a nursery that they can afford, where they know their child is going to be safe, going to be nurtured, so they can go to work. I think it's really easy, isn't it, to become kind of polarised to the point of sort of a kind of a madcap extreme, where I sound like I'm representing a position where I would have everybody be given their £10 to spend by nanny state in the week, and then you can't spend more than that, and you can choose either a blue coat or a brown coat, because actually I'm a kind of raving communist. I'm not. And I think equally, Ben, I think it's probably, you know, you're a very intelligent man. You're not necessarily advocating for something that is a kind of utter Wild West free-for-all.
No, I think the balance is wrong.
The balance, I think, is wrong as well, but I would nudge the other way. I think you're saying that, you know, you could have rampant, sky-high inflation, but I think this is the challenge, isn't it? We've got the Bank of England, we've got our Chancellor, who are trying to work out what is the best way to kind of correct and steer the ship through very turbulent waters. We can disagree on what they should do, but I don't think they should just sort of slam a handbrake turn on.
The policies that they've adopted so far have resulted in record level of national debt, record level of inflation, highest inflation in 40 years, record level of tax take from the population. So we're now at a 70-year high in the tax take that the government has. And GDP growth over the 12 years has been around 10% in sterling terms. If you put it in dollar terms, the United Kingdom hasn't grown in 12 years. Now, you can't have the population going up from, what was it, 63 million in 2010 to 68 million, have no growth in the economy, have massive inflation, have massive increment in government debt, and expect people's livelihoods to improve. So whatever they're doing, they're getting it fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, I agree that growth has to be the driver for getting us out of this mess. I totally agree with you. It's just how you go about doing that.
We got there in the end. You agreed. Growth has to be the driver. Lots and lots of you guys emailing in on that particular topic, and I'll read some of those out in just a second once I come back from a break. But guess what? I did it. I found you. I was asking, is there anyone out there that likes and supports the SNP? I found you. Quite a few of you, actually. Nick says, Michelle, we've got free education, free prescriptions, free period products, all bought in by the SNP. Not all bad at all. Ian says, I love the SNP. You don't read out messages from the SNP at EN, that's English News, because that's what you all are. Why don't you English go and set up an English independence party and break away from the so-called union yourself? I'm pretty sure, he says, this message won't be read out. Surprise, surprise. Come on, the SNP. Roll on, Indy, Ref 2. There you go. I read it out. And I found some SNP lovers. High five to me. Right, going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll have some of your responses on that work topic. And I also want to talk to you about that topic that never really goes away, because quite frankly, no one's doing anything about it. What am I talking about? The channel crossings. This time, the story in the news that the Royal Navy potentially might stop leading the patrols on the channel. Is that the right thing or not? I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Coming up on Dan Wootton Tonight, should victims of the extreme trans lobby be exonerated by the wider media following the Tavistock expose? One of Britain's top comedy minds, Father Ted creator Graham Linehan, says he never should have been cancelled for criticising the gender clinic. He'll join me live. Plus, as lockdown leaves 10,000 people waiting 3 months for treatment, cancer battler Linda Nolan teams up with former head of the World Health Organization Cancer Program, Carol Sikora, to break down the shocking stats. Plus, there's opinion galore from top US journalist Megyn Kelly and my superstar panel, media personality Christine Hamilton, conservative commentator Reverend Calvin Robinson, and author and journalist Rebecca Reed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
One can.
No.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry, keeping me company and quite frankly not really agreeing on very much at all. It's my panel tonight. We've got the former Brexit Party MEP and the CEO of First Property Group, Ben Habib, and the anthropologist Mary Ann Hotter. We've just been talking about whether or not you're incentivised to work. I've got to say, it's split down the middle at the moment. Lots of you saying absolutely kind of going out working. It's something it's just in you, isn't it? It's an attitude, I guess. Some other people saying that they feel that there's lots of people that are basically work shy. And lots of you as well have been in touch that you're on universal credit and giving me your reasons why. Just had someone that's saying that you're building a business at the moment. That's why you're claiming universal credit, because you're not bringing in any money. Someone else saying that you're claiming a variety of benefits because of ill health and that you can't work. Nick has said, Michelle, I've been self-employed for over 35 years. I'm now at the end of my tether. I'm trying to work out if I can finally start work at the age of 58, because quite frankly, I'll be better off not having to go and pay for a vehicle to go out and work, get the accountant, get the fuel costs and all the costs, etc., to run a business. So I think that's Nick there saying, in summary, that it's not worth his while going out and working. I think that's a real shame, because I am a big believer in the welfare state for those people that absolutely need it. But I do worry with things like furlough and all of the government handouts and all the rest of it, that perhaps some people have got a taste for a life now, that actually there is this opportunity not to have to go to work and to just be in receipt of government assistance. And I'm not sure how healthy that is for a country, for an economy, especially one that we've just been discussing, needs to be boosting its productivity levels. Mary Ann, desperate to disagree with me, but I'm going to move on. Okay. Because look at the time, ladies and gentlemen. It's almost 7:15. It flies, doesn't it, when you're having fun? And I just want to do one more story before I leave you, because we talk about this one often, don't we? The channel crossings. Quite frankly, no one seems to be able to get a grip of it. We talk tough all the time, this policy, that policy, and all the other. You might have noticed that the Royal Navy, they've been leading the charge when it comes to patrolling the channel. Got to be honest, though, they've become almost like a glorified taxi service, haven't they? I'm not sure how effective they've been, especially not as a deterrent, which is one of the reasons that they were in place in the first instance. Anyway, long story short, potentially, come January, the Royal Navy might not be continuing their duties. Would that be a bad thing, Ben Habib?
Well, I don't think it's going to make a blind bit of difference, given the ineptitude with which they've been patrolling the North Sea so far. I mean, the way I put it to people when they talk, ask me about illegal migration across the Channel is, what would Border Force's reaction be if 400 people got off a jumbo jet at Heathrow Airport and charged the immigration desks and insisted on being let in? It would be the quickest way to get guns pointed in their face, find themselves face down on the ground and handcuffed, manhandled back into a room, put on the next plane back to wherever it is they came from. And that is a physical border control. That's what would happen in Heathrow Airport. You're looking at me askance, but that is, you try it next time you're coming through Heathrow, run at the immigration desk and see if you don't get a gun pointing in your face. When these people come across into our territorial water from French territorial waters, effectively they are assaulting the United Kingdom's integrity. That's what they're doing. And the Navy and Border Force should be physically repelling these people. Rwanda is not a solution. Rwanda is an acknowledgement that border control isn't working. Rwanda is a deportation program to deal with the people who've already come across our defective border control and been ferried back to our shores by Border Force and by the Royal Navy. What we need is either Border Force to be sacked and a whole new load of people to be employed who will actually do their job, or the government needs to take on private individuals who will actually push these boats back into French territorial water. They're putting themselves in danger coming into the Channel. They've got the right to make the decisions they wish to make, but then they must recognise there is a risk that they will be pushed back into French water, and we must push them back. That is it. That is border control.
Marianne? You laughed, by the way, at part of that when he was saying basically this is an assault in some way on the UK. You thought that was
I mean, I think it's very colourful language. I think if you want to, I'm trying to work out how to phrase this. If you want to have people spread-eagled on the concrete of Heathrow Airport's runway, being handcuffed and marched away to some kind of detention facility because they might be an illegal immigrant, then I would invite you to do that to the women and children who you think may be Ukrainian, but, who knows, maybe they're from somewhere else.
Marianne,
and they threw their papers because they are also claiming asylum or refuge status here.
Hang on.
And the suggestion is that you can look at the... No, it's not silly because you can...
Someone being invited to come to the country versus someone making an illegal crossing are two different things. Let's not conflate the two.
OK, so firstly, if you're seeking asylum, there's nothing illegal about... it's dangerous. You might have paid people to do illegal things. You might have paid people smugglers to get that place on the really dodgy dinghy to try and get across the Channel. I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm saying that absolutely needs to be addressed because it's a humanitarian crisis as well as a national crisis. We don't want 200,000 people every year risking their lives and risking the lives and the resources of our Coast Guard, of the RNLI and of our Navy, who have better things to be doing.
And the billions of pounds we have to spend on housing them once they get here, apparently in pretty classy hotels.
No.
And fighting all sorts of judicial processes for the multiplicity of asylum applications they make.
That is because you need to determine whether someone has a legal and genuine claim of asylum, in which case we have a duty and a responsibility as citizens of the world to provide refuge and asylum.
They are coming from France.
Doesn't matter.
If you click on...
A Ukrainian refugee has passed through other safe countries.
A Ukrainian refugee has been invited into the country. What are you
talking about? It doesn't matter. They can't be invited. If you're a refugee, you have a right to claim asylum. So we treat everybody equally, whether they're from Ukraine or Afghanistan or Iran.
The correct way to do it is to make the application in France, and once asylum has been granted, to safely travel from France to the United Kingdom. The wrong way to do it is to do it illegally, in a craft, breaching international law, breaching our national
You're not breaching international law if you're claiming asylum. If you're an asylum seeker, you cannot breach international law.
Can I ask you a really...
Wait, hang on. Can I make one point, which is that, once again, I find myself sitting at this desk next to you, Michelle, having an argument about whether the people in the boats are doing the right thing or the wrong thing, and we're focusing the arguments around what those individuals' decisions have made. decisions those individuals have made.
That's not my argument.
What we need to do is
that's
dial
not my
back
argument, Marianne.
and say this is the fault and the failing of the Home Office and the government. They've had 12 years in government. They said they were going to take control of our borders. Now, however they were going to do that, whether we agree or not with the kind of the moral, ethical, humanitarian, or the kind of practical details, they have failed. However you measure that, Priti Patel is an appalling failure and is still in post. The whole Rwanda plan has cost the taxpayer millions of pounds, or it will do by the end of it.
120 million up front to Rwanda.
There we go, including 20... Exactly. The fact that the asylum seekers are suffering real harms because they're put up in old army barracks that aren't fit for habitation, like Napier in Kent. A high court judged them unfit for habitation by asylum seekers last year, and there's still people
but
there.
Marianne,
there's people in hotels that
Marianne,
is costly and terrible for them. There's no reason that an asylum claim should take months to be processed. Whether or not someone does or doesn't have papers, that, once again, is a failing of the Home Office. So it all should come back to the Home Office, not to the refugees or not the people claiming asylum from the boats. It's not about them. This needs to be about government policy and the border force.
Well, I mean, it's just very simple. Border control is exactly what it says on the tin, border control. It's a physical process. You've got to protect your borders. You can't have people willy-nilly crossing into your territorial waters without showing their papers at the point at which they wish to cross, which is not a practical proposition in French territorial waters as they come into UK ones, so they need to be pushed back.
No.
And if they want to come, there are British immigration officers in Calais who can take their asylum papers and process the applications and all that. And I just want to say one more thing.
Oh, yeah, because I've only got 30 seconds.
40% of illegal migration across the North Sea from June to the middle of July was from Albanians, who are perfectly safe.
So? Yes. But what about the 60%?
How can you say
so? Some people scam the system. That doesn't mean
But you seem to think breaching our borders is a fine thing.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that we need to have a system which is humanitarian and fair.
Well, push them back to France. They'll stop
No, because
coming.
then you will see RNLI crews watching people drown in the sea.
Why? They'll be in French territorial water, back on French shores.
Make them not dead.
Right, I tell you what. This is going to rumble on. If I know my viewers, and I think I do, I imagine that some of you, I'll have steam coming out your ears right now. So that is all we've got time for. Thank you to my panel. Thank you to you at home. Nigel Farage is up at 7 o'clock. Nigel, good evening. What have you got for me?
Good evening, Michelle. I'm going to keep that spirited debate going. Of course I am. Do you know, every single proposal that Boris Johnson put on the table to deal with the cross-channel migrant crisis, every single one of them has fallen to pieces. None of them still stand today. We're going to ask and debate tonight, can Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss provide a solution to this? I'm very doubtful, but joining me on Talking Pints is Tony Abbott, the former Australian PM who solved the problem. Be very keen to hear what he has to say. But before all of that, let's get the all-important and I think somewhat wetter weather.
Hello, I'm Aidan McGivern from the Met Office. We've certainly seen some lively weather during the last couple of days, and showers will continue in places during the next 24 hours, although it is turning drier in the north as an area of high pressure starts to build in. That's settling things down for Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. That dry weather is on the way south, but low pressure over the Channel is maintaining some showers and even some thunderstorms heading into the evening and overnight. So further heavy downpours, hit and miss. Not everyone will catch one of these, but where they do occur, well, it could be some tricky conditions on the roads, could be some surface water flooding, for example. It's 15 or 16 Celsius in the south, much fresher further north where skies are clearing for Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England as the night goes on, and then a sunny start for many in the north Wednesday morning. Still some areas of rain or showers across central and southern England as well as South Wales. And then really the risk of some torrential downpours across southeast England, East Anglia in particular by the afternoon. 24 Celsius in the southeast, so turning progressively cooler, and we're looking at high teens, low 20s elsewhere, although a pleasant day to come with light winds and plenty of sunshine for Scotland, Northern Ireland and Northern England. The clear skies don't last long in the north. It turns cloudy by the evening and some rain returns to western Scotland and Northern Ireland, although most of this is light to moderate, so not causing any real issues. The showers in the south fade away overnight. Still 1 or 2 about first thing Thursday, though, and a warm start, 15 or 16 Celsius. A gap there across central parts of the UK as we begin the day on Thursday, some sunshine. But Scotland, Northern Ireland turn wet with outbreaks of rain spilling in